Well,
What
I
theory?
get this question a lot privately, and it's funny. When I was a correspondent for RT America, I was sent to Helsinki to cover the Trump-Putin historic summit, which I was very hopeful for as a US American who would like to see improved relations with Russia based on common sense. That was an aspect of Trump's platform when he was running for president, which I thought was a positive addition to the conversation, even though I didn't necessarily trust him or believe that he would carry out all of his promises. And as we've seen, that meeting and any relations between Russia and the United States are completely out the door. It's been sabotaged mainly by people that Trump surrounded himself with, such as National Security Advisor John Bolton. But I was still very hopeful and excited to go to Helsinki to cover this summit. And as a correspondent for RT America, I was kind of excluded from the press corps, the clique, the Washington and White House correspondents, which had all traveled to Helsinki as well in order to cover this event. And they were so disgusted by the whole thing, reacting, saying, this is treasonous. I can't believe the president of the United States is sitting down with the Russian president. I mean, these people are so nationalistic and vile. And they're supposed to be reporters. They're supposed to be taking international affairs seriously, but they come in with this very ham-fisted imperialist mindset.
And
And one of the
just to even interrupt, sorry there. I don't even think they're truly nationalistic. They just hate Trump. I mean, it's not that they were always. All of a sudden they hate Russia. All of a sudden, it's really
well,
something.
but they do really believe in this American exceptionalism and the idea that the US is the great actor on the world stage. It can't do anything wrong. But one of the only people, if not, well, the only person I met during that entire summit who I had anything in common with as a reporter was Tucker Carlson. He was there. I think he ended up doing an interview with President Trump during that meeting, but we were all sequestered in this area, where the press would get food and coffee during the summit, and I met him there and we just kind of got along. And so I stayed in touch with him, and I told him when I was in Venezuela about what I was seeing there and how much of a mistake I felt US policy was, and how misdirected it was, and how it was destined to fail, and how it was leading to more suffering. And he invited me onto his show when I got back, but then breaking news pushed it, and it ended up being perfect, because then on April 30th, when Juan Guaido, the US appointed puppet of Venezuela, led this failed military uprising where he had about 1530 something or other something like that or so odd soldiers with him in the street, and again completely failed the way US policy had been and continues to do. And that day, April 30th, Tucker invited me on his show, and it was just ideal timing, because Venezuela, I think at that point and throughout the entire coup attempt, that was the day that mainstream media was most focused on the issue. And he was the only one willing to bring someone on to say that it was wrong and to denounce sanctions. And I wasn't the only segment critical of US policy that he included in his show that day. But from there, it just kind of exploded and took on a life of its own. The next day I woke up and I was getting hundreds of messages from all over Latin America. It had been translated into Spanish. It led to me eventually getting invited to go and talk in places such as Honduras, because this clip, it was so important for, I think, people in Central and South America and the Caribbean to see that not only was there a reporter like me who was going around the region and trying to provide a different perspective in the United States, plenty of other people do that, but a major cable news show in the United States, in fact, the #1 show, the most popular show in the country, was willing to include this perspective. I think it shows kind of where this country is at. I believe most people in this country think the way I do and think the way Tucker Carlson does on some of these more critical foreign policy issues.